All right, let's dive straight into this. Welcome to this analysis where we're going to unpack something truly fascinating and honestly, a little bit unsettling. Today, we're taking a hard look at the dark psychology tactics that powerful individuals use to secretly guide human behavior. I mean, imagine having the power to steer your boss's decisions, get a friend to agree with you effortlessly, or even direct a total stranger's actions. It sounds like a superpower, right? But it's actually just the darkest corner of human psychology. Now, before we go any further, I want to make one thing absolutely crucial crystal clear. We are breaking down these 5 powerful tricks strictly for educational purposes. We're doing this so you can understand exactly how these forces operate in the real world and, more importantly, recognize when they're being used on you. Trust me on this. Once you see how these tactics actually work, your entire perspective on human interaction is going to change forever.
So that brings us to a really crucial question. Are your decisions truly yours? You know, we all love to believe that we're the masters of our own destiny, totally in control of the choices we make every single day. But what if the options you're choosing from were carefully curated by someone else entirely? What if your so-called free will in any given situation is actually just an incredibly well-designed illusion? As we go through this analysis today, I really want you to keep that question right in the back of your mind. Let's start the countdown.
Kicking things off with trick number 5, the illusion of choice, or controlling the options.
Okay, so it's a basic fact that people generally push back when they're told exactly what to do. We all crave that feeling of being in control. Let's say you want a friend to go out with you. If you just hit them with a direct request like, hey, let's go out, you're inviting a massive chance of rejection. They might be tired or busy or just kind of not feeling it. But if you take that exact same goal and reframe it into a choice, something like, hey, do you want to grab Pizza Hut or Domino's tonight? The entire game changes. Notice what happened there. You didn't ask if they wanted to go out, you asked where they wanted to go. To their brain, they're just making a totally free choice between 2 options. They feel absolutely in control. But the reality? You intentionally limited their choices to guarantee a yes to your underlying goal of getting them out of the house. And listen, this isn't just a neat trick for picking restaurants. This specific tactic is a huge favorite among large brands, major corporations, and politicians. They give you the illusion of a choice while keeping the actual control entirely in their own hands.
Moving right along to trick number 4, the yes ladder technique. Basically, building up to the big favor.
Human nature is pretty predictable. If you ask for a massive favor right out of the gate, you're almost definitely getting a no. There's just way too much friction there. But if you build a subconscious habit of agreement first, well, it's a completely different story. Let's look at a workplace promotion as a perfect example of this. Step 1. You start with a tiny favor. Hey boss, can I just sit in on this new client meeting to soak up some experience? The boss says yes, no big deal. Step 2. You escalate just a bit. Can I take on a couple of extra responsibilities for this specific project? Again, yes. Step 3. Could I attend this leadership workshop next week to sharpen my skills? Yes, again. By the time you finally hit step 4, asking if you can apply for a promotion because you've taken on all these extra duties and the clients are thrilled, your boss's brain is literally already wired to agree with you. He's already said yes to you 3 or 4 times in a row. Denying that final request at the very top of the ladder actually feels completely illogical to them because they've already validated your worth at every single previous step. Professional salesmen, corporate leaders, and high-level negotiators climb this exact ladder every single day.
Which brings us to trick number 3, the guilt trap, leveraging emotional debt.
So here is a fundamental truth about us humans. We are not always logical, but we are intensely emotional creatures. Imagine you really need to borrow a friend's car. If you just walk up and ask directly, "Can I borrow your car?" the data shows you're looking at a whopping 90% rejection rate. People are naturally very protective of their stuff. But if you preface that exact same request with one specific phrase, like, "Hey, remember last month when I helped you out and gave you that 2,000 rupees? Well, I actually just need a really small favor now." Boom, everything shifts instantly. What's actually happening in that car example is defined as emotional manipulation. The person asking isn't using logic to prove why they need the car or why they're a safe driver. They are completely 100% bypassing logical reasoning. By suddenly reminding the target of a past favor, they intentionally induce a heavy feeling of guilt and obligation. The person being asked now feels totally emotionally cornered. They feel like they owe the requester, so they comply, not because it makes logical sense to lend out their expensive car, but because that induced guilt leaves them feeling like they literally have no other acceptable option. It's a highly effective, albeit pretty dark, mechanism of control.
All right, down to trick number 2. And honestly, this one is absolutely mind-blowing. False memory planting, rewriting the truth.
We really like to think of our memories as these perfectly saved video recordings on a hard drive, but the reality is they are incredibly fragile and highly malleable. Using a political campaign as a neutral example here, let's see how a totally fabricated claim actually becomes reality. At time 1, during a big rally, a politician makes a completely fabricated claim. When unemployment was at its worst, I single-handedly got 5,000 people jobs. Then, at time 2, during a primetime media interview, they build on that lie with immense confidence and highly specific details, claiming, before we arrived, there was poverty, but we fixed the economic situation for 70% of the state. Because these statements are delivered with such absolute unwavering conviction and repeated constantly, we inevitably reach time 3. The human brain is lazy. Rather than doing the heavy mental lifting of fact-checking every single confident claim it hears, it just absorbs the repetition. Eventually, the general public accepts this completely fabricated narrative as a factual memory. People literally start to think, oh yeah, I do kind of remember them doing that. It is a profound, terrifying manipulation of collective memory.
And now we have reached the absolute pinnacle of our countdown. Trick number 1, the power of silence, speaking less and controlling more.
We always assume that the person doing all the talking is the one holding all the power, but true psychological control usually belongs to the master of silence. It's a heavy concept, right? Let me give you direct application from the source material. If you suspect a friend of stealing from you and you want the absolute truth, you do not aggressively ask, "Did you steal from me?" They will just instantly throw their walls up and get defensive. Instead, you look them dead in the eye and say, "I know everything," and then you do not say another single word. Or, let's say you're in a business negotiation. You don't ask, "Can I get a 30% discount?" You say, "So I'll be getting a 30% discount on this, right?" And then you shut up. By simply refusing to speak, you take this immense psychological burden and you drop it squarely onto the other person's shoulders. When you deploy strategic silence like that, you are actively forcing a reaction. The other person instantly feels fear, discomfort, and deep insecurity. Human nature is fundamentally wired to despise awkward silence. We have this desperate, burning urge to fill the void at all costs. If you just stare silently at an opponent in a debate with a slight smile, they will literally start doubting their own arguments. They'll often backtrack or weaken their own points just to get you to finally react. If you use silence on that suspected beef we just talked about, the discomfort grows so incredibly heavy that they will often instinctively blurt out the truth just to break the tension. The less you speak, the more power you hold.
So we've walked through the whole shebang: the illusion of choice, the yes ladder, guilt traps, false memories, and the crushing power of silence. We've broken down exactly how human behavior can be quietly directed right from the shadows. But I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Now that you know exactly how these tricks work, you have to ask yourself, who is using them on you? Remember to speak less, observe a whole lot more, and use this knowledge to protect your own mind out there. Thanks so much for joining me for this analysis, and keep thinking critically.